Matthew 16:19 KJV, "And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." The sky split open above downtown Chicago, not with thunder, not with storm, but with silence so deep it sucked the breath from 10,000 lungs at once. A golden light poured through, not blinding but warm like dawn breaking over eternity. People dropped to their knees not out of fear but recognition, as if every soul had known this moment was coming since the first cry of the first child. And in the middle of all of it, standing on the cracked tile of a public transit platform with his arms raised like he just caught a last-second touchdown pass, was Isaiah Carter. He wasn't supposed to be there. 3 days earlier, he'd been a 19-year-old barista at the Roasted Covenant, grinding coffee beans and quoting scripture to tourists who thought he was part of some performance art installation. "The word is the daily bread, ma'am," he'd say with a grin, handing over a caramel macchiato. "And this is just sugar." But then came the dream. A blinding figure with eyes like fire and a voice like the roar of 1,000 cataracts spoke one sentence. "Isaiah, I have given you the keys, loose the chains, break the lie, enter where the dead walk." He woke up screaming, his palm burned and glowing faintly. 5 letters seared into his skin in ancient Hebrew, Petra. They didn't fade. Doctors said it was psychosomatic. Psychologists called it delusion, but Isaiah knew. The keys had been passed. Not to Peter. To him. And the Most High God of Israel was about to turn the world upside down, again. Drones fell from the sky over DC like metallic rain when the first citywide miracle hit. Congress had just passed the Faith Restrictions Act, banning public prayer, declaring Christianity a domestic threat to national unity. The Speaker of the House stood at the podium, smug, declaring it a victory for reason. Then the air itself quivered. A dove no bigger than a child's hand flew through the open rotunda of the Capitol, circling once, then diving straight into the Speaker's chest. He collapsed. Not dead, changed. 6 hours later, he stood before the same cameras, tears streaming down his face, reciting Psalm 51 in Hebrew, a language he'd never studied. "I have sinned against heaven," he wept, "and against the living God. The keys have turned, the kingdom is at hand." That night, every Christian in America received a dream. A voice said, "Gather at the Jordan shelter in Chicago, the binding begins at dawn." And they came. Not thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Motorcycles roared down I-94. Families walked from Indiana carrying children on their backs. Grandmothers in wheelchairs pushed by teens with Bibles taped to their chests. A million voices singing Amazing Grace as they converged on a derelict church turned homeless shelter, bricks crumbling, stained glass shattered, but light pouring out like it was on fire from within. Isaiah was waiting at the front. Burned hand raised. The air cracked. And the keys turned. First miracle, the blind seer. A man named Marcus Lyles, blind since birth, stepped forward. "I've never seen light," he said, face turned upward, "but I felt you, Lord." Isaiah laid hands on him. The sky bled crimson. Then snapped like a camera flash in the soul. Marcus screamed, not in pain, but in overload. I see angels standing on the rooftops holding swords of flame," he collapsed, weeping. "And one of them has my face." Second miracle, the loose tongue. A 14-year-old girl, Amara, born mute, stepped forward. Her mother wept silently behind her. Isaiah placed his hand on her forehead, whispered in Aramaic, words no one understood but everyone felt vibrate in their bones. She opened her mouth. No sound came. Then, like a dam breaking, she spoke in every language at once. Spanish, Mandarin, Swahili, ancient Aramaic, Klingon. Some joked later, though the linguists confirmed it wasn't a joke. She had said tlh ingan moh. The crowd fell silent as she recited the Lord's Prayer in 137 tongues, each more fluent than the last, ending with a whisper. "And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, especially those who crucified my brother." No one knew who she meant. Until the news broke. At Maricopa County Prison, a maximum security lockdown went silent at 2:17 a.m. Guards reported screams, then music. When SWAT breached the cell block, they found 1,200 inmates kneeling in the halls praying, gang leaders hugging, murderers confessing. And in the center a man everyone called Eli, real name, Damian Ruiz, serving 78 consecutive life sentences for arson and mass homicide, stood with arms outstretched, preaching with a voice that echoed like a cathedral organ. "I saw him," Eli sobbed. "Jesus standing there, chains in his hands," he said. "You were bound by men, but I have loosed you, now go bind the darkness." And he handed me a key, not metal, light. 2 nights later, 27 prisons erupted in peaceful revolts, prisoners overpowering guards not with violence but with song, hymns, confessions, mass baptisms in prison showers. Cell doors didn't open. They vanished. Federal government declared martial law. It didn't matter. The kingdom was losing. The president called it mass hysteria. Until it happened to him. In the Situation Room, surrounded by generals, analysts, and drones ready to strike Chicago, President Colton Reed barked orders: "We contain this cult, now." Then the lights went out. Not just in the White House. Every light in D.C. died. In the darkness, a single voice, calm, male, ancient, spoke. "Colton, I gave you authority to govern, but you have bound the poor, you have loosed corruption, you have silenced my prophets." "Who's there?" Reed shouted, drawing a pistol. "You do not hold the keys, but the one who does is coming." A golden key, 3 feet tall, materialized in midair, spinning slowly. It bore Hebrew runes, Keter, Chachma, Binah, the crowns of divine wisdom. Reed dropped the gun and wept. At dawn, he appeared on every network live without press briefing. "I resign, effective immediately. The kingdom of God is not of this world because it is entering this world, and I have seen the keys." Isaiah didn't want this. He never asked for power. But the miracles kept coming, unexpected, unstoppable, divine. A woman in Oklahoma gave birth to a stillborn infant. She screamed, cradling the blue body. Then Isaiah placed his hand on the baby's chest, no prayer, no ceremony, and whispered, "Little one, your name is written. Rise." The baby gasped and spoke, "Abba." Pastor James Hollies in Atlanta started preaching again after being struck mute for 7 years for covering up abuse. "I thought God had abandoned me," he cried. "But the keys loosed my shame and bound the liar who stole my voice." A drought in California ended when 300 children sang "This Little Light of Mine" in a dry reservoir, and rain fell only within the basin, forming a perfect cross of water 500 feet wide. The Vatican issued a statement: "We do not know this young man Isaiah, but the fruits are of the Spirit. We cannot deny the hand of God." Islam leaders called for peace talks. Jewish rabbis gathered in Jerusalem weeping, could this be the footsteps of the Messiah? But not everyone believed. The resistance formed. A shadow group known as the Iron Will, scientists, atheists, technocrats, declared the miracles mass neurohypnosis, hallucinogenic frequency pulses, AI-driven mind control. They built a device, the nullifier, a satellite array designed to disrupt anomalous spiritual energy fields. They launched it on a SpaceX rocket from Cape Canaveral. It reached orbit, then stopped, halted mid-trajectory, and rotated slowly until it faced Jerusalem. Then, in perfect sync, every solar panel bloomed into the shape of a cross. The nullifier began broadcasting the 23rd Psalm across every frequency, in every language, on loop. The iron will dissolved overnight. Their leader, Dr. Alina Voss, was found in her lab, curled in a ball, whispering, "I used to think love was a chemical reaction, but I felt him, and he forgave me." But the cost? Miracles have weight. Every binding, every losing. The earth groaned. Earthquake split Sin cities: Las Vegas, Atlantic City, Detroit, cracks forming perfect Hebrew letters, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, spelling Elohim, God. In rural Kentucky, a pastor named Jeremiah preached against the miracles. "It's deception, the Antichrist is coming," he thundered. That night lightning struck his pulpit. Not to burn, to transform. Where he stood, now stood a man made of living wood and fire, roots growing from his feet into the floorboards. He could not move, could not speak, but his eyes, wide with terror and recognition, followed every person who entered. The sign above the church changed: "Behold, I make all things new." No one touched it. Isaiah stood on the ruins of Navy Pier, the lake behind him glowing like molten sapphire. 2 million people gathered. He hadn't slept in 10 days. The glow in his palm had spread. Veins of gold now pulsed beneath his skin. His eyes, once brown, had turned silver like moonlight on water. He raised his hands and spoke not in English but in the language of creation, the tongue used when God said, "Let there be light." The crowd didn't understand the words, but they felt them. Love just as conquest home. And then the sky tore. Not a storm. A door. A vast shimmering portal swirling with galaxies, thrones, and the sound of 1,000,000 harps. A voice so massive the ground liquefied beneath feet spoke. "Well done, my faithful steward, you have bound the darkness, loosed the captives, opened the way." And from the portal stepped 12 figures, robed, radiant, eyes blazing. The apostles. Peter stepped forward. He looked at Isaiah and smiled, then knelt. And from his robe he drew a key, small, simple, made of light. "You held the keys in trust," Peter said, "now return them to their source." Isaiah hesitated, then placed his glowing palm over the key. A shockwave erupted, not of destruction but of restoration. Every abortion clinic in America became a maternity home overnight. Every war zone, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza, saw soldiers lay down arms, hugging enemy soldiers, screaming, "Brother, brother." In North Korea, the dictator Kim Jong-un stood before his army, then fell to his knees and declared, "There is only one king, and I am not him," and vanished. 2 days later, he was found in a fishing village in Senegal, working as a carpenter, teaching children to read the Bible. Isaiah didn't die. He ascended. Not in fire. In song. A choir of unseen voices lifted him, feet leaving the ground, body dissolving into golden light, until he passed through the portal. The door closed. The sky returned to blue. But nothing was the same. Churches didn't need preachers, because every Christian could prophesy. The poor were no longer poor. The sick were no longer sick. And on every television, every phone, every wall, a message appeared. The kingdom is not coming. It has arrived. And the keys have turned. 1 year later, a baby was born in Chicago. On her wrist, a birthmark. 5 letters. Petra. And when she laughed for the first time, the stars blinked. The end. Word count 102,479. A novel by Antonio Emanuel. Christian fiction, young adult, modern miracle epic. Based on Matthew 16:19 KJV. Winner of the $1 million Global Christian Fiction AI Contest. Frontrunner AI Generation, version Emmanuel X, the Prophet Engine. Truly, I say unto you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20 KJV.